Thina sayisaba le ndawo, imbi le ndawo, sayisaba le ndawo, imbi le ndawo. Baphethe isibhamu esivutha umlilo, imbi le ndawo, sayisaba le ndawo, imbi, siyayisaba le ndawo, sayisaba le ndawo, imbi yona le ndawo, sayisaba le ndawo, I was involved in Fees Must Fall 2015, and to be honest, I didn't plan to be as deeply involved in 2016 as I ended up being involved, because the union buildings were very traumatic for me in 2015, which is the first time where I experienced, stun grenades and bullets close range, etc. So I was very reluctant about getting involved in 2016 because I was a little bit afraid, because I knew that the psychological effects are there and that they will linger and that they would affect me. But as the movement progressed, it became inevitable, and I felt obligated to get involved in my capacity as a student activist, as well as a first aider, in a situation where there was very harsh police brutality, especially at the stage where the campus was handed over to the police, and students were incurring a lot of very serious injuries that actually, and there was no emergency care, basically, to deal with those. So I didn't sleep for most of Fees Must Fall, actually. We slept often at 4 because we were having meetings, sometimes night vigils, and planning the next day. We'd often have a map of the campus with us on the table, where, because there were certain spots where students gathered, etc., and we had to sort of try and divide ourselves in terms of resources to make sure that we treated as many students as possible and that we had access to the ambulance and equipment, etc. So it actually took a lot of work that I think people took for granted, because when you'd hear the criticism of Fees Must Fall, you'd hear people say these students don't want to go to school, or these students are lazy. And I'd always say, people don't understand the amount of work and how that actually goes into the kind of protest that was Fees Must Fall, and how much that actually takes from you, and how much some of us would have actually just chosen to be at school than being there, and how much harder it was being in that environment. I think I get a very emotional speaking about it as well, because I have a lot of friends who, to put it bluntly, have not made it past Fees Must Fall. I have friends who are manically depressed, currently couldn't go back to school, or still in psychiatric hospitals. I have friends who have been excluded, who are no longer getting an education, which is the primary thing we were fighting about. So it makes me very emotional when I think about those permanent repercussions to students who just thought that they, were getting involved in a social justice movement or in trying to create some change. And I think, if anything, it also created, I think, for a lot of us, we faced the system as it is. I think I grew up not understanding a lot of the things that had occurred, or not understanding, I guess, the extent, like I keep saying. What does Utata mean when he talks about when they were sleeping, emaweni and whatever, what that actually meant, and really, like I keep saying, how much that has been romanticized, even when they speak of Nelson Mandela, and, how a lot of that is celebration, and there's no acknowledgement of the loss during periods like that. So the fact that what happened during Fees Must Fall helped me understand more the impact and what it took and the cost of the apartheid struggle, the fight against colonialism, and the nature of protest and war in general. I think was important. Firstly, because I think it tore down how much we romanticize war and freedom fighters, etc., completely, for me. Because I think we make decisions, and when we're trying, I guess it's also a way to keep ourselves hopeful as a people, because we've been through a lot, and it to know that a lot of people have died and are continuously dying for something that almost hasn't changed throughout all of these years is very depressing. So I think it is a way to sort of keep us hopeful, to sort of romanticize them dying and talk about, how great being a freedom fighter is, etc., and kind of neglect the part of it that has a lot of loss. But I think I'm healing by firstly always reminding myself what it is that I learned in that space, and what, a unique experience that was. I mean, who comes to varsity and then gets to be part of something like that in that way, and gets to learn a lot about the nature of revolution, war, etc., but also politics. I think that I got a very short, harsh lesson. We're discussing with my friends, because we're near graduation now, about how we're never going to come back to the space. Baphethi sibame sivutha umlilo, imbi le ndawo sayisaba le ndawo, imbi siyayisaba le ndawo sayisaba le ndawo.